Hey, eBay sellers, you have landed on episode number 89 of eBay the Right Way. Today's date is November 30th, 2022. Today's guest is Carol in Alabama. She is a super busy wife, mom of 5 kids who she homeschools. She sews her kids' clothing and somehow finds time to sell on eBay. A quick update on the premium library since those weekly emails bit the dust. I have added a keyword lesson. There are now 26 of them, totaling over 4 hours of instruction. Remember, if you aren't calling things by the right names, buyers won't land on your listings, so correct terminology is crucial when selling on eBay. I also added a bulletin. I do those twice a month, and it's me on camera talking to my students, some face-to-face encouragement, my finds and sales of the week with teachable moments, and other eBay news you might have missed. Also added was the November member Q&A, which is podcast style, audio, no video, chock full of questions from members who emailed me. We are now up to 551 videos in the premium library, which adds up to 146 hours of content. So if you watched all the videos and listened to all the audios, it would take 6 straight days to get through it all. You can still get a free trial. You can watch or download anything you want. Also, you get unlimited email support directly with me if you have any questions. And the info about that free trial is below the podcast. I also want to give a shout out and thank Jenny Baum, a member of my Facebook group, for bringing this little tidbit to our attention. Terapeak now goes back 2 years. This is huge and very handy when researching rare items that don't sell very often. And it will also be a great tool to watch trends, whether prices and the number of sold listings increase or decrease over time. For example, if an item is discontinued, you can watch how sold prices change over time. Now we have 2 years of history. You have to click the down arrow on the top right of Terapeak to change the time frame setting to 2 years. So thank you so much, Jenny, for pointing that out. That is going to be a great change to Terapeak to help us be smarter sellers because we can access more information. Okay, now for the chat with Carol.
Hello, listeners. Today we have Carol with us. And where are you located again, Carol?
In Alabama.
What part?
We're out toward the, I guess it'd be the coast. So Foley.
So, okay, so on the Gulf.
On the Gulf, yes. Yes.
Okay. Are you anywhere near Daphne?
Yes, I'm about 35 minutes, maybe 30 minutes from Daphne.
Okay, I have a friend there. And so, yeah, familiar with that area. That's where Atlantans go to the beach sometimes.
Oh, there are so many beach people here.
If you don't want to do like 30A with the crowds and the price, there's good places in Alabama on the coast. I have another friend who calls that LA, Lower Alabama.
Yes. Yes. When we first visited here, that's what they were calling it, LA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're not originally from there.
No, I'm not. I'm originally from Massachusetts.
Oh.
I my family traveled and sang for about 10 years in a like a big bus, and we sang gospel music and sang at churches, sang at nursing homes, um, all kinds of different places, RV parks. So that's where I met my husband. He was at a church down here.
Uh-huh.
And his grandfather's like, "Oh, you've got to meet my grandson." I'm like, "This is ridiculous." I'm like, "All these people keep trying to set me up, it just never works." And so it worked. It really worked. So we traveled and sang together with my family for about 2 years, and
Oh,
then we moved back to Alabama, and it was a little bit of a switch from
uh-huh.
cold New England to humid and tropical Alabama, but it's been an adventure.
Well, that was my next question. That must have been a culture shock coming from
It
up
was a little
north
bit.
down here.
It was a little bit, but the people are super friendly, and I really like the atmosphere. People are very, very nice.
What was the hardest thing to adjust to other than the weather?
Well, just being away from my family, I think, was the hardest part because I'm the oldest of 8 kids. So it was kind of like, it was like, where is everybody? um, but now we have 5 kids of our own, so we're extremely busy. And
Oh, you have 5.
I have 5 of my own. Yep. So we're and we go back to visit my family like twice a year, just about twice a year. So
Okay, I thought you
yeah,
just had the 2 you mentioned. So how old
yeah.
are all the kids?
So my youngest just turned 1 in July, and then my oldest turned 10 in August. So we've got I don't know, we've got 8, 6, 4, and then the one that just turned 1.
So are they all there now?
They're all there now, being
Oh,
quiet.
okay. Okay, so you said that you put your 10-year-old in charge of the 1-year-old, so
Yeah, the other ones are pretty good. Everybody gets along pretty good. And if they're watching like a show or something, they'll be very quiet.
gosh, and so you homeschool and do eBay
Yes.
and you're a wife and gosh, you have a lot going on.
Yes. It's a lot. Sometimes it's a lot. Homeschooling is just basically the morning time. I just do a lot of homeschooling in the morning. I'll try to ship before we start school, and I'll be like, "Hold on, guys, you got to
Mhm.
finish the shipping." And
Okay, well,
get
then
my
we have a
packages
lot
out.
to talk about with how
Yes.
you balance everything because that is I only had 2 kids and it was a lot with 2.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the more children you have, sometimes the easier it is because they entertain each other.
Mhm.
So my 2 youngest, I'm like, I wish he would want to do less schoolwork and do more playing with the baby because that would entertain her more. So I do feel like there's a benefit from having, multiples that can um, kind of keep track of each other and play. They just have fun.
Well, do you think 5 is enough or might there be more?
I would love to have another baby. We'll see.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, make it an even 6.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Okay. Wow. That's a lot. So
It's very busy.
what brought you to eBay? Was it just selling your kids stuff?
Well, back in 2001, my parents got a computer. And so that was the beginning of my, I'll say, eBay journey. But I got stuff from like the Christian book distributor catalog. And I sold like
Mhm.
VeggieTale stickers and like anything that I thought, and it wasn't serious. My dad's like, yeah, you probably made like $1.50 on some of those sales. And it wasn't that great, but it was fun. I remember, getting the checks in the mail. And then the biggest find that we found from that catalog was the Waltons. They had this VHS Homecoming, and it was going for, I don't know, maybe a moderate amount, but toward the holidays it got even better. And the price went down in the CBD catalog. So it was like $5 for the VHS, and it was going for like 70 maybe. So we were we lived in Massachusetts, and I think they had a distribution place there. So my dad drove to the place, and he picked up the rest that they had in their stock. And
Mhm.
so that was probably our best find. I think my very first thing was like this purple bathrobe. I don't even know where I got it. It was just this purple bathrobe, probably sold for $7. It was kind of like a new novelty, something fun. And we had like the cameras, we had like the floppy disks in them. It was the 3.5-inch floppy disks.
Mhm. Mhm.
So um and I also volunteered at a place called a place in Orange, and this lady had kind of like a thrift store, but she didn't want to sell anything. So she wanted just like give the stuff away, but she had like a donation of $5. And if you worked there, you could take anything you wanted home for free. But her stipulation was you couldn't sell anything because she wanted to just help people. And so I was
Uh-huh.
thinking, well, she's got like a lot of these vintage coats. And so I said, well, I can sell them for you and then I can bring you the money and then you can use it to, further, pay the rent and stuff like that. So I did a couple coats for her. And I think it was a little bit discouraging because I didn't really get anything for it except the satisfaction of helping her. But it was good experience. I'd take the coats outside and I'd model them on the, out in the street. So it got my feet wet. And then when I married my husband, I didn't really do that much eBay. It kind of fizzled out. I didn't really have a good source. I feel like if I
Mhm.
had known to go to the thrift stores, like different thrift stores that I wouldn't have felt guilty selling from, or if I had been going to yard sales more often, I maybe
Yeah.
would have found some more stuff. But he started going to the flea market, and because his grandparents sold on Amazon, and they sold like a lot of books. So he was like, wow, they made some pretty decent money selling on Amazon. So let me try selling on eBay because it was kind of hard to get into Amazon. So he would go around and get like to the flea market and get like video game controllers and stuff. And I went with him and I got like rubber stamps and I got this one box for probably like, I don't know, maybe $5 or $6. And it was back when they had a lot of those wooden backed stamps, and those were actually valuable. Now they're not as valuable. But there's some like retired Stamp It Up stamps that did pretty well. And I sold a lot out of that box. So that kind of got me inspired. And, but we started yard selling a little bit, but I didn't know what to look for. And there wasn't as much on YouTube, telling you what to look for. There just wasn't much information. So we moved to Alabama and we started yard selling and doing some eBay, but I was afraid to spend money. I was like, what if this doesn't sell? I don't want to spend $5 on something and then it not sell. I didn't know what to look for. And I was kind of, I bought a Vera Bradley apron, but for 50 cents. Like I wouldn't spend very much. And that apron sold for like
Mhm.
$25. So it was good, but I just didn't know exactly what to look for. Um, so then it kind of fell off. eBay kind of fell off again. We had some personal issues. We had a flood in our apartment. There's just 3 feet of water in there. So
Oh,
just a,
no.
just a lot of stuff. And we had already been through a house fire. My parents' house that we were staying at when we sang in the ministry, that had burned. So there was like a
Oh,
lot of
no.
stuff that had gone on. So that was kind of like it kind of died down again. And so I would say probably about 5 years ago, um, one of our local thrift stores had a sale. And it was once a month, they would open up their warehouse and it was like 50 cents a pound. And the big Gaylords full of stuff. It was kind of like the Goodwill bins, but it was only once a month. It was for like 2 or 3 days. And it was in the big Gaylords. You had like big cardboard things you had to like lean over.
Yeah,
So
and so for the listeners, a Gaylord is like the big cardboard thing they put pumpkins in at the grocery store. It's just it's not really a box. It's just a cardboard receptacle for
yes, it's like an
stuff.
open top
Right.
type box. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I started going there, but then I was afraid to spend money again. I'm like, well, what if I don't find anything good? But I started watching YouTube a little bit, and there was some couple of older, let's say 5 years ago, there were some people, putting out content on reselling, and I would listen to some of those people. But I think the best thing for me was those bins because it was cheap. And after a while, we started
Mhm.
picking up things that we didn't know what they were. I was like, I don't even know
Mhm.
what this is. And then it would sell for like $80. Like maybe we should just go ahead and just like get a lot of stuff. And then shoes were selling good. So my husband's like, just get all the shoes. So we got like tons of shoes. Some of them were not good and some of them were. Um, so I really like that experience of finding something cheap that I could get my feet really wet. I got boxes of like brand new perfume, vintage perfume, like brand new, all wrapped up. And that sold for like, I want to say like $200 and something to this one person in like New York. And so I was really excited about that. Um, and as I said, I was starting to listen to more YouTube people. And one guy said, he had a guest on. She said, well, look for brass candlesticks. I find them, 50 cents, $1, and put them in a box. And I lot them together. And lo and behold, I found a ton of brass candlesticks. at these bins, and I sold those for like $230. I was like, this is amazing. So I still look for brass candlesticks to this day. I'm like, oh, there's a brass candlestick because they still sell
Yeah,
good in lots.
those do well. Yeah, for all kinds of reasons. I think I first learned about that a couple of years ago. Eileen Cole, she's known as the book lady, but she sells everything. She was talking about how people were buying them for events and weddings, and just to have, they didn't have to all match. It could be
Hmm.
mismatched stuff, and that adds more character to your decor theme, so I thought, I didn't think anybody would want that. Those are so 70s and 80s looking, and they're not like super pretty like now, where you can buy all kinds of things for weddings and events in bulk online and personalize them and customize them and all that. And it's like, really, people want these old clunky brass candlesticks?
I know there's so much that I mean, personally, like I don't put a lot of value in some of the things I sell and buy and sell, because I'm like, I would never use this. I would just never use it. But yeah, so that was fun. I'm trying to think. So from there, the bins closed, and I was so sad. So this was about, I would say we shopped there for probably about a year, maybe a year and a half. And then I had my son, he just turned 4, and it closed about the time that he was born. So I was kind of disappointed. I was like, oh, where are we going to find the stuff now? Because we did so well. We just had to shop for, a very short amount of time, and we got so much stuff.
So,
So,
and just to clarify, this was not a Goodwill bins. This was just like a closeout store.
well, it's a thrift store. It's like I'll say off brand. It's in our area. And if
Mhm.
anybody's listening from our area, they'll probably know and remember the pound
So it's
sale.
just like one location that was an
They
independent
actually
business.
probably have at least 4 other thrift stores with the same name, and I think
Oh,
most of those
okay.
locations had a pound sale. I think the
Okay.
big mother store is in Pensacola, so we're
Okay.
not too far from Pensacola. So that closed, and that was disappointing. But I just had a baby. I was like, you know what? I need a break anyway. So let's just get the baby, grown up a little bit. But so then we found an Amazon return store,
Oh,
and
right.
that was in Pensacola, and we shopped there for probably a good 6 months before it kind of went downhill. But it was incredible. I could shop, I'd line up on Fridays, and I would come out with like, I didn't know what I was doing the first time. I already got $600 worth of stuff, just kind of like wandering around like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I got amazing stuff the first time. So I'm going to go back again and keep digging. So,
Mhm.
but then eventually they went downhill. Um, so then I'm watching more YouTube, and I'm like, okay, I see people go to thrift stores. Like they actually just go to a thrift store, and that's how they source. So I'm like, I'm going to try it like more consistently, because every time I'd go, it'd be like bad, or it would be just overpriced. And I'm like, there's nothing good. So I started going consistently, and I feel like that was the key. I had to go every day or every other day at a certain time, and kind of, or at different times maybe, to find out when the good time was.
Mhm.
Like when they might be putting things out, when there might be new carts. So um, I was doing okay like that. I wasn't doing terrific. Then my dad came to visit me in July, and he's kind of inspired me because he loves to thrift too. And he's like, he wanted to go every day with me. I'm like, okay, let's go. So it was fun to have a shopping buddy.
Yeah, to have a helper, another
He
pair of
did, he did,
eyes.
he did so good.
Yeah.
I was super impressed. Um, he's always had a good eye. He used to shop at like government auctions and stuff way back in the day. And
Okay.
so he didn't sell on eBay, but um, he knew where to find the good deals.
Mhm.
So I started going ever since like August or so. I've been going pretty consistently to some of these thrift stores. I found the ones that were the best, and I just honed in on those and just kept going and kept going. Um, so he found a very interesting like iron, like a puff sleeve iron, basically. And
Mhm.
I looked at the box, and I'm like, I don't know, Dad. Like, I don't know if that's gonna be that good, but he's like, I think you should get this. And I'm like, okay, I'll get it. It was only $2 or $3 maybe. And it turned out to be like worth $130. And I'm like, I would have passed on that if he had not been
Mhm.
there. So I was super thankful to him. That's also the haul where I got that Dritz velvet pressing board that I had posted on your group for $1. And I think this lady, they must have been an estate or something, and they just donated a ton of sewing supplies. So I was checking back. I got a nice big, I'll say, shoebox full of Bernita like sewing feet and stuff like that.
Right.
And like the little pedal for the machine. That box was like, I want to say probably at least $250 worth of stuff for $4. Like, it was just amazing amount of stuff. So I went back and I said, "Do you happen to have the machine that goes with this?" And she goes, "Let me check in the back room." And they didn't have it. So I was like, if they had the machine, I probably would have kept it and sewed on it for a while. But I don't know. It never hurts to ask.
Okay, so you do sew, and so you
Yes.
knew what those things were.
I knew that I knew they could be valuable, and Bernina was a good name. And I'd sold we had sold sewing machine pedals before. So I think this sewing machine pedal went for like I don't think at least $100, the one that was in the box. And I'd never sold one that good, but I knew that the sewing machine pedals could be, $20 or $30 at least. So for $4 plus all the feet, I
Okay.
thought that was a pretty good
So
deal.
as an experienced seamstress, what kind of things do you make?
I was just making pot holders when you sent me the
Oh, really?
text. Yes. Yes. I make dresses for my kids. I got a serger probably, I don't know, a year or two ago. And I've
Okay.
been having fun with the serger. So,
Uh-huh.
but
And
yeah.
so explain what that is for the listeners that might
So
not.
a serger would be it kind of puts a finished edge on your seams. So there's no raw edges. You don't have to put a zigzag over it. You just, serge it up and it comes like, it looks like a factory made it. It's all nice and tidy.
So it cuts and sews at the same time.
Yes, you can. Yeah, I have the clipper foot up most of the time. Sometimes I'll put it down, but yeah, it's very convenient.
Because that is an indication of a better made garment. If you have to learn what to look for, but if
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
looking at like clothing and you're completely like, you don't know anything about it, a serged edge, and listeners can look that up, see what it looks like.
Yes.
And be like, oh yeah, I've seen that. But,
yeah. If you look on the inside of your shirt right now, you'll probably see a serged edge.
right. Yeah.
Yes.
So, some of the cheap stuff made in China doesn't have that. It's kind of a raw edge.
It could be.
And that's just me, the untrained seamstress. I'm looking at my shirt right now. Yeah, it's serged.
Yes. Especially your side seam especially will have a serged edge. The one on the bottom has like it's called a cover stitch. When you have a machine that does the top stitching and the bottom, your serged stitch will only be on the side. That will be keeping the raw edge in.
I only learned enough to make Halloween costumes and like window treatments and crafts and stuff that didn't have to fit perfectly, because and you probably make your kids' clothes knowing that you're going to let them out and in.
Well, the thing is with the serger, it's super forgiving. So if you use jersey fabric, there's so much room for error and you can be safe. So I like that better than using the, cotton stuff. I'll do like, quilting more type stuff with the cotton stuff, but jersey to me is so like forgiving. That's what I like the serger.
Well, how long have you been sewing? Did you learn as a teenager?
Yeah, I would say even probably before that. My mom had a quilt that she had made, and I was always inspired by the quilt she made. But my mom actually had reminded me. She goes, "But don't forget," she goes, "I inspired you to do eBay." I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah, because remember that time I went to the yard sale and I bought a book for $1 and I sold it for like $20. We were all amazed that she had sold it. So that was probably the very, very first thing our family had ever sold on eBay. But
yeah,
she's inspired me a lot. My mom has inspired me a lot.
Oh, that's great. So you probably know a lot about linens and handmade items, at least the terminology to put in your listings.
I'm learning every day. I feel like I found quite a few quilt tops. just recently, which has been, I wasn't sure if, if people would buy quilt tops, but they are. I've found several. Um, I feel like the handmade ones and with the tighter stitching do better. So if I
Mm-hmm.
see one that's kind of sloppy with a sewing machine, I kind of pass over that one. And maybe they could be valuable, but I'm looking for ones that have handmade stitching on the inside that look, um, they, even if they're kind of falling apart, people will buy them. But looking for the
Yeah.
handmade stitching is important.
Yeah, the tattered quilts are a thing. I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter if it is literally tattered and falling apart. People use
Yes.
that for decor because it's rustic
Mhm.
and primitive, and
Yes.
it takes a little studying to be able to recognize a machine stitch versus a human stitch.
Right.
Because some seamstresses are so talented that their stitches are exactly the same length. Like you really
Yes.
have to look at it.
Yes. Yeah, you do. I think one key word would be a cutter quilt. So if you
Mm-hmm.
find the one that's all messed up, and I bought one for $3 the other day at a yard sale, and then I think I sold a little bit too cheap because it sold like really quick. But I called it a cutter quilt, and I never really was like, oh, okay. So it people do want cutter quilts. They make other crafts with them. They will cut them down and make like little, I don't know, pot holders or coasters or something like that. They'll make
And I've
things out of them.
seen jackets made out of quilt
I've
tops.
heard about that. I have yet to actually go and look that up because I want to look that up. I want to see what they're doing with them.
Well, seeing it like on the Money Making Mondays and like not in person, just
Yes,
out
right,
there.
right.
Yeah. So it's
Yes,
just,
I'd heard someone talk about that too. Yes.
yeah, there's a lot you can make, tote bags, little handbags, things for children, wall hangings,
Hmm.
and they just want that main piece that they can cut apart and use for something else. So it just never ends. Just we're always learning new stuff.
I know it is. It's a very fun business to be in. I think that's part of the reason why it's so, I say, attractive, because it's there's always something new, always.
Yeah, always something to learn. So let's talk about some of your notable sales, some of your either unusual, interesting, surprising, not necessarily high dollar, but just, wow, I can't believe somebody paid for that.
I'm trying to think of some of the most recent ones. Um, my I haven't sold this yet. Maybe we shouldn't talk about if I haven't sold it yet. So let me think of ones I've actually sold.
Well, that's okay. I mean,
Okay.
you can give the backstory of why you
Okay.
bought it, what you
Well,
think
okay.
is going to happen.
So this last weekend, I think I may have bought the best thing that I've ever bought for $1.50. So I went to an estate sale, and I'm not a big fan of estate sales because they're so like expensive. You really have to know what you want, and at least the ones around here, they seem to be expensive. Um, but I'm reconsidering my thoughts about that because I went to this estate sale this last weekend, and there was bookcases full of books, and I'm looking around, and there's this genealogy book on the bottom. And I was like, it's $3. I've already got this big pile of books I'm going to get. I'll just wait maybe till tomorrow, or maybe I won't get it at all. But I kept thinking about it. I looked it up while I was there. I comped it. I could not find anything except one picture on Abe Books. And I'm like, if it's on Abe Books, it's probably like pretty rare, but I couldn't find any like good number. There was no number. It was out of stock. So I'm
Mhm.
like, okay. So I bought it on the half off day for $1.50. It's a big, thick book. So I got home. I'm like, I'm gonna list it for like $50 because nobody's got it, and I'm just gonna we'll just see what happens.
Mhm.
Um, so I did more research on Terapeak. I just looked up this genealogy without putting the word book in, and so a CD came up of a digital copy of this book, and the man who was selling it had the last name connected to this genealogy book, and he said, "This is a digital copy of the Luther genealogy. And if you find the red book, which is published in 2001, which mine was, there are only 750 copies, and a worn copy would go for 500, and a pristine copy exceeds 1,000." So I just screamed after I read that. And my husband heard me from the other room. The kids were like, "What's wrong with mom?" He goes, "I'll bet she found something worth $500." He was just kind of like joking, but he knew.
Right.
So I have it listed on eBay right now for well over 1,000. I don't know what's going to happen, but it was
Mm-hmm.
extremely exciting. It's those kind of things that make you kind of like, what else could be out there? You
Mm-hmm.
don't even know. Nothing at that estate sale was worth $1,000. I didn't see anything that was like super valuable. So
Mm-hmm.
who knows what's going to happen, but it was a fun, it's, it's out there. We'll see what happens.
And how long has it been listed?
Probably 2 days,
Oh, so you
2 or 3
didn't hear
days.
it at the
I
beginning.
just
Yeah.
got it this weekend. I just got it
Okay.
this weekend. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll watch for that.
Yes. Even if it sells for 200, it'll be a good deal. A
Yeah.
good score.
Yeah. I mean, it was what? Would you say $3?
It was $1.50.
$1.50.
Yeah, the guy on that ad said it's one of 750 copies if he's selling the truth. But that's the only
Right.
information. So we'll see.
Well, that was
But
smart of you to read the whole listing to figure that out.
yes, I would say yes, but I was surprised. I feel like it was like the Lord leading me to that thing because I wasn't looking for the CD at all, and
Mm-hmm.
to follow through and have him put that information in the listing.
Mm-hmm.
Like he could have just said, this is the digital copy of the book and left it at that. Like I could not find any more information except from his listing. And his last name matches the genealogy book. So he's one of the people. This genealogy book goes from like the 1600s, 10 generations. So
Oh,
yeah, it's a very massive book and it's about early American genealogy. So it was very interesting. It was. I opened the book up. I'm like, this is so boring. Like, I don't even know. You have to.
who would
You have to.
want this?
You have to appreciate exactly. You'd have to appreciate, this desire for history and more knowledge to appreciate this book. I'm sure.
Well, and that just goes to show that some people just want a book.
Yes.
A specific book. Yeah, you could probably
Yes.
find information online scattered
Yes.
around here and there, but
Right. Well, he was selling the CD, which would have only cost you like $27. You could have gotten all the information for $27, but it's the experience of having that book, having it in your hand, because so much is digital nowadays. To have something in your hand is more special. More special.
yeah, and those older books may have writing in them and other information that's valuable to historians or whatever the category is.
Yes, it was definitely. He explained in his ad as well that this is not just about the Luther family, but it's about other early American names that are mentioned in there too. So for sure.
That's fun. So
Yes.
okay, moving on to some things that have sold.
Okay, let's find some things that have sold. Let me think. Let me go to my eBay thing just and go back and look. There was this one thing. Let's see. The thing that keeps popping into my head is before we did the bins, the 50-cent pound sale, we had done a little dumpster diving. And I was like, it was on YouTube. People were dumpster diving and finding things. I'm like, let's just go
Yeah,
dumpster
that
diving.
was a thing for a
Yes.
while, was showing people climbing into dumpsters. But then
Yes.
again, you don't know what's been staged. Like what
So
did
true.
they put in there that they could film themselves pulling out? And so
I agree.
you have to, with any reality TV or YouTube, I mean, that exploded about in 2017, I want to say, where all these people got on YouTube and started doing hauls. And I mean, it really started in 2012 with Steve Rakin had a channel, Rakin Profit.
His name is familiar.
He's kind of all over the place now, but it was him and like Bonafide Hustler who Steve started off doing bicycles, like
really?
on Craigslist. Yeah, on Craigslist.
Oh, on Craigslist.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
And then it was a bunch of guys like that, young 20s that were just showing what they got to sell and stuff. And then it kind of exploded in 2017. Just all these people got on YouTube and were making these haul videos and dumpster diving and just, it's really more for entertainment.
I was going to say it was very entertaining.
I mean, there's some valuable information in some of these, like what to buy, but as time went on, it was just really, they go into Goodwill and they find like 5 things they can sell for $100. And that's not the reality of what we do at all.
No, definitely
So
not.
anyway, back to your dumpster diving.
Back to my dumpster diving. Okay, so we were dumpster diving and just looking around, and we went in this dumpster. It was behind an antique mall, and it wasn't like the super upscale or anything. But we were just poking around the dumpster, and we found like these like electronic type things and like parts, and we're like, what in the world is this stuff? So we just started, we're like, we better just go ahead and unload it all and take it all home. Let's see what it is. So we got I think we went back a second time to the dumpster and he got more stuff out. But it was like sound equipment type stuff. And it was like brackets that hold the sound equipment. And there was one thing in there, which was the best thing. And I think it might have been the best thing the highest dollar thing we've sold so far. And it was a LCD screen remote control. And it sold for $350 out of the dumpster. So that kind of like also sparked us. There's definitely stuff out there. If people can I said, I want to be the person that throws this out. Where are these people getting this stuff they can afford to just throw out a $350 remote? Like, who's buying it? Who's buying this stuff so they can just like, oh, we're just going to throw it out. Like, I couldn't figure it out.
Well, I think a lot of it just comes from moving and house clean outs. And
yes,
there are realtors I know who they'll be selling a property and the house is full of stuff. They're like, person died, or they just, one lady's like, yeah, the guy went to jail.
Oh no.
He's not, his house got foreclosed on and then she is selling it. And so eBay's kind of their side business when they happen upon these treasures that they have to sift through it. It falls on them to figure out what to do. And it's just time. They don't have time to do
it's time and it's also knowledge. It's like, okay, if you're dealing with antiques all day and you do glass or you do, probably things that I have not as much knowledge in, and you find a bunch of electronic stuff and like little brackets and stuff, you're thinking, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want the time. I don't have the time. I'm guessing it was a storage unit clean out. Like somebody had bought a store. That's my guess. My best is a storage unit clean out. But I would love to do storage units, but my husband is only one person that can carry heavy things. And he's like, I don't have any help.
Yeah. And that's a big, what's the word I'm looking for?
It's a commitment for sure, I would say.
That's right. It's a big commitment to, and they want you to take everything. You can't just shop. It's all or nothing. So you have to have a truck or a big van or a way to transport everything. And then what are you going to do with it? Where are you going to put it?
Yes. Storage is
working through it.
I feel like storage is one of the biggest issues for just the average reseller, because where are you going to put all this stuff? Because it does take time to sell. So especially some things you just got to sit on.
There's no shortage of storage facilities anywhere. You see them building something. It's like, oh, it's either going to be urgent care or storage
or Dollar General.
It's like, people aren't thinking maybe I should have less stuff. They're thinking I need more space for all my stuff. And I have seen this with people in their 70s that just like, you're not going to be here forever. You need to go through this stuff and figure out what you're going to do with it, because it's going to fall on your family or somebody to deal with this when you're gone. And a lot of people, they just don't want to think about that. And they don't want to think about what's going to happen to my stuff when I'm gone. But it's just, we will never have problems finding things to sell, because as the baby boomers continue to age, it's, they have all the stuff. They have a lot of stuff. And
well, I do feel like the one thing about sourcing is making the most of your time. So I only have a certain amount of time to source. And I feel like I need to find good things with my small, I would say I probably spend 2 hours, maybe 2 hours a day sourcing. And I want to make the most of that time and not waste it. Because if I get skunked, basically, if I go to the thrift stores over and over and I keep getting skunked, I'm like, I don't want to keep going because I don't want to waste 2 hours of my time. I could have been home doing other things that were more important.
Mhm.
If I'd known I wasn't going to get anything, but it's so sporadic. Like I've noticed our yard sale season is different than the North. So the North has like May till maybe September, and then
Mhm.
the flea markets might be open a little bit longer. But here, the summertime is dead. Like we hardly have any sales. And I felt like during that dead time, the thrift stores were doing good for me. Like I had a lot more influx from the thrift stores.
And
And
the thrift stores have air conditioning.
yes, it's more comfortable.
The people up north are probably like, what? You don't have any yard sales in the summer? It's too freaking hot. Like, who
If
wants to have a yard sale when it's 95? Who wants to go to a yard sale when it's 95 with 80% humidity? That's just
yes,
miserable.
yes, whenever we host a yard sale, we try to pick good days. We hardly would ever pick a summer day. That would be the stupidest thing.
Yeah, because people are either at the pool, at the beach, or inside in the air conditioning.
Yes. So I feel like I have to follow like where the best sourcing avenues would be. And someone says like don't be romantic to what's working or what's not working. Like if you love to go to the thrift stores and it's not working, try something else. If you're serious about finding more items, you need to find out what's working, and it might be shifting. So
Mhm.
as I said, the bin store for the Amazon returns that I was going to, that closed down, and a new one has opened up in its place. So I haven't been. It just opened up this last weekend. It hasn't opened yet. I mean, it has opened, but I haven't been. And I'm trying to wait for the reviews and see what people are saying before I make a big commitment to trying it out. We will try it out eventually, but I said yard sales are doing good. Let's just stick with the yard sales right now,
Mhm.
and then we will, shift, because I'd be more than happy to give up the thrifting for a season and then go to the bin store and find good stuff in a couple hours instead of spending time every day. So I try not to be too romantic about I have to do it, although it's so
Right,
much fun.
right. So, did you finish your storage unit story, or did we get off topic there?
Okay, so that was one of our, I would say one of my sales that sticks out in my head is like wow, like we pulled it out of nothing and it was going to go to the trash, and we sold it for $350. Um, I know you
And
don't
that
like.
was the monitor
It was an LCD remote control.
remote control. Okay.
It did some kind of thing with a sound system, and it was a little bit of a risk because we didn't have a machine to test it with, so it was a little bit of a risk. Um, but it never got returned. No one had any problem with it, so it looked brand new. Like it still had the plastic on the front. So
So, was this a storage unit auction?
no, this is out of a dumpster.
Oh, so
I'm
how do we get on
guessing.
storage units?
Well, just that I'd like to do them someday.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm
I
open
mean,
to more sourcing ideas. And a lot of people online are very into like build relationships with the people in your area. So I have, in a sense, like there's this one guy who had a yard sale and he does storage units, and he had a yard sale. Everything was $1. Like, I'm like, really? Like $1? And he's like, oh yeah. So my husband got a video gaming console for $1. We got like this little, all kinds of stuff for $1, like vintage fans, all kinds of stuff. And I was like, I would love to pick his shed or wherever he stores his extra inventory before he has the yard sale. So I would like to reach out to him and to make a connection there, but I don't have a good place to bring if he wants to sell in bulk, I don't really have a place to bring a bulk purchase, like half of a storage unit. So that's part of the struggle. Like I said, like to have a place to process this stuff that doesn't take over your house. We have a garage that basically is got sheetrock in the floor, and we have our eBay inventory in there and packing supplies and other storage stuff for our own house. But that's where I try to contain all the eBay because it can get
mhm.
overwhelming really quick.
Yeah, I've always liked to have my inventory in my living space, like not in the space, but in closets or garage or whatever, because
Mhm,
I know sellers that have storage units
mhm,
and they go every day and pull out what needs to be shipped. And I just like being my little personal rule is I like to be able to put my hands on something in 30 seconds. Like
mm,
I know where it is,
mhm,
visually I store things in clear containers or they're on shelves, or like I know where
mm.
everything is. And I think because time is money. And when you
Yes.
spend
Yeah.
30 minutes looking for something, you have to be organized or you are wasting time. So it was more of a time thing, like, oh, I've got to go over there, even if it's just a mile. And then if people have questions, you got to be able to pull out that item because, you get questions about things you didn't even think about putting in the listing. One lady asked me one time to measure the buttonholes because she was going to put different buttons on this jacket,
Oh,
some kind of special buttons that
oh my.
were her mom's on her mom's coat. It was something like that. And like, I'm not going to measure buttonholes on every clothing listing, but
Oh yeah.
if I didn't have my inventory in my home, I would be like, oh, I have to go, get in the car. And you always get those kind of questions or have to do things when it's pouring down rain or it's freezing cold and you don't want to go anywhere. So
Yes.
it's whatever works for you. But, I hear you on where am I going to put it because you want it to be at arm's length, basically right there.
Yes.
You can pull it. And that's the way my mind works. I'm just like a mother hen with all her little chickens around. Like I got to have all my chicks right here with me.
I think it's a good idea. I think if you lived in an apartment, like a super small apartment, if you were a single person maybe, or there can be instances where the storage unit would make sense, but then you have to pay for it too.
Yeah. And most of the
It's like,
apartments have like extra garages where
okay.
it's not under your unit, but it's
Hmm.
on the property. And
Okay.
with when COVID happened and all the housing prices
Mm.
skyrocketed, so did storage unit prices.
Oh.
Because I lived when I was in Georgia at my last location,
Mhm.
it was a 55 and over community right next to me. And I talked to a lot of people that were saying, their apartments were just crammed with stuff and because it was temporary. They knew they were moving somewhere else. And they'd be like, yeah, we had to go get a third storage unit today. And, they're raising the prices. It's like real estate because everybody was in that situation of you could sell your house for astronomical amount. And they didn't think far enough ahead to say, okay, where am I going to go and how long am I going to be there and where am I going to put my stuff? They just sold their house in a day and then like, oh, right, I need to think this through. So like even just a small storage unit, like, I don't know, 6x8 or it's like a jail cell. It was like $200 a month.
That's
And
crazy.
do you really want to take on that expense?
I feel like for that price, you could just buy an extra shed and stick it in your yard. Well, not if you're in an apartment, but if you owned your house, you could buy an extra shed and then you would own it at the
Yeah, a
end.
lot of people with homes went to renting while they were figuring out what to do because guess what? You sold your home for an astronomical price.
Mhm.
You can't turn around and buy something for cheap because everything was so expensive. So you just had to
Yes.
wait for the market to stabilize.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that is definitely a concern. How many items do you have in your eBay store?
I think I've got 754 today. But I think one of the keys recently, we've had our best 2 months. The last 2 months have been the best 2 months of eBay ever.
Oh,
And I'm
wonderful.
and I'm like, this is very strange because the economy is not doing terrific or anything. And there's been much better, people have been more willing to spend money, a while ago. But the one thing that I've been doing differently is I've been doing the delisting and sell similar.
Hmm.
And I've been doing that like every day, like twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day. If I wake up with the baby or something, I'll be like, oh, let me just delist a couple things, relist them, and that seems to really, like, I thought it was kind of a joke people would talk about. I'm like, well, that sounds kind of hokey. Like, I don't know, like the stuff's already out there. Why would this work? But I do think also, my husband and I do this basically together right now. Like in years past, it's been one or the other has been more on board and more like fired up about doing it. When we had the pound sale, we would have a competition every month and see who sold the most stuff. Because he's like, well, I think my stuff is, the way I listed is better. I'm like, what, really? So we'd have a competition.
So your husband has his own eBay
fun.
account?
No, we sell from the same account. So it's my
just
husband and I
what
together.
he picked versus what you picked.
Yes, and how he listed it versus how I listed it. Like maybe the pictures or maybe the description.
So you're both listing on the same account.
We're both listing on the same account. It's like I said, he inspired me. So it's basically coming out of his encouragement of like he would build like the soap molds that you can like make your own soap out of. Before we had our apartment flooded out, he would make those and sell them on eBay. The shipping right now is way too expensive. Like I don't know if it would work anymore. But shipping wasn't as bad back then. But so he's been fired up at different times, and then I'd be excited. So when we're both together and we both really are excited about it, it works the best because he'll list things that I'm kind of like, and I list things and I pick things that he would be like, I never would have picked that up. So it really does help to have two people with different perspectives and different interests and different shipping skills because he shipped out. I found this thing. I went to go pick up an encyclopedia set. It was worth about maybe $200 and they're asking $10 for it. And I just went to go pick it up. And at the end of their driveway, they had two like seats that go in like a car and it had a label on it saying what it went to. I'm like, well, they're free. Like they were moving. They were just trying to get rid of their stuff. So I picked up the encyclopedia set and I picked up the chairs and we got home and he's like, and we started researching them. He just sold one for, I'm trying to remember the total, but we made a profit of $200 on the seat. And but it was a pretty big bulky item. He had to find the right box for it. He taped it up, so it was kind of like, I picked it up, but then he listed it. So we kind of have to work together in some ways. I think to maximize. And if I was on my own doing it, I mean, I guess I could figure out how to do it, but it would be a lot of work. I might have thought
you're
twice.
really fortunate that your spouse is on board with this because there are a lot of people who their spouse doesn't have any interest in it. They don't care, or they just don't believe that it's ever going to be a lucrative enough business to do. It's kind of like, oh, that's your little hobby. But then the person will sell like something for $300 and it takes that over and over for the uninterested life partner to get on board.
Like I said, it's been a roller coaster, but like sometimes I'm really into it and sometimes he's really into it. And then when we're both in it together, it makes, a lot more sense. And he's a lot more forgiving when I bring home stuff because he knows it's for eBay. I bring home a pile.
Yeah. So I want to go back to what you said about ending and restarting listings. Do you have a process for that?
I just go to the active listings and I say find and I say, or sort, I think it's sort. And then you go to ending soonest and then those will come up. Now I will just go ahead and delist whatever. Sometimes I'll discriminate. I'll be like, well, this has 5 watchers on it. I'm not going to delist it. Or if I just listed it, like it's okay. I'll leave it for another month. Sometimes it'll be, I'll adjust the price.
Why do you choose ending soonest and not the oldest?
I've never thought of that before.
So the way I do it is I sort by date listed and I pick the oldest ones. Because used to be you were charged for listings that were renewing. And that's why people picked ending soonest so they wouldn't get charged again. But I've always thought, well, go to the oldest because that's been sitting there the longest.
So how do you find that again? Do you go to sort?
Go to your active listings and sort by date listed or starting date. And you may have to go to customize and add that column.
Okay, because I have ending soonest, newly listed, most watchers, highest bid.
So maybe you may have to add start date from the customize menu. So
that's like if there's I'm gonna have to look for that because that would be great to find the ones that have been sitting on there the longest.
So do you change anything and do you do relist or sell similar?
I'll do sell similar and I will sometimes adjust the price. It kind of depends. And sometimes I'll take off the free shipping. Sometimes I'll put shipping on. I feel like it's just sometimes you just catch new people, and it doesn't matter if it's free shipping or not. Sometimes you just catch the new person that's looking for that newly listed thing.
So
But
since you're kind of new to this, I'll tell you that I have learned over the years for search engine optimization, you need to change things on the listing for it to look different to the search engines. So rework your title, either move the words around or delete words, add new words, switch the pictures.
Okay, I have switched a couple pictures before. I'm like, let's find a new picture.
Do that every time, because then Google Images will pick it up as a new image. Even if you just rotate it a tiny bit, or maybe change the background color to a really faint blue or yellow or something, or you can flip it horizontally if it doesn't have any letters, or like if it doesn't have to be in that static position. Jiggle the price up or down, even $1. Change the shipping weight by like 1 ounce. Like anything you can change that's not really going to affect it.
Do you feel like the handling time would be one of those changes that you could make?
I don't ever do handling time.
Okay.
But what you're trying to do is make it look different to the search engine in both images and text.
Okay.
And I don't really change the description box where you type in stuff. I just change all those other features. And then another reason to go to your oldest listings rather than what's about to renew is because eBay adds those item specifics all the time. They're adding new ones. So you can look at, okay, is there anything here that I can check that wasn't checked before because that option wasn't there?
Right.
So I do have great success with that. And my goal is 5 listings a day to end and restart, just to jiggle that, to show that there's activity on your store. And I'll be like, it usually takes a week or two for something to sell that I just ended and did a sell similar on. It doesn't necessarily happen that same day. And then another thing you were concerned about was the watchers. I don't feel like watchers mean anything, because if they were going to buy it, they would have. And if you restart that listing and they have a saved search for that, they're going to find it again.
Right.
It benefits you more to end it and restart it with changing things for the search engine than it does to sit there and wait for people to take action. It may be another seller watching your item that has no intention of buying it.
I totally hear you there. I don't know who has time to go around. I don't go and watch anybody's stuff. Like as a seller, I don't go around watching other people's stuff. But I do feel like you're right that a lot of people who are watching are just waiting for the price to drop, or waiting for, they don't want to pay that much. That's why they're watching it. So
and they'll find it again, and they may show up in your send offer workflow, which you're not going to know, because you don't get to know who those people are. But and I just have success with that. And I know people like, KC, he doesn't ever tweak his listings. He just keeps listing more stuff
because he finds gold every single day.
I know. That's a very
unique situation.
But it takes maybe 10 minutes to end 5 listings, jiggle things around, put them back out there. And some days you just don't have time to list new, fresh items.
Oh, yes.
You're, my goal would be 5 sell similar, 5 new items on most days. But life happens, especially with 5 kids.
Yes. Well, when we were sick that last week, I'm like, it's a good thing I'm selling similar, because I can't do much else right now.
Right. Yeah. So, okay.
Yes.
Well, we have been going just about an hour. Is there any other big sales that you want to share?
Well, I will say thank you for putting me onto the Baby Morgan blankets, because I found them at a yard sale, and I'm like, I think I know about this. I do. There was a Baby Gordon, which is also like, I don't know if it's an off-brand of Baby Morgan, but I bought that one too. And they both sold. And I'm kind of like looking out for vintage blankets now. And also the Loveys that you've talked about before. I bought several Loveys that have been good. I just bought one the other day. I think it's going to go, I don't know, 30 or $40 for this one Lovey, I think. So thank you very much for putting that out there and for letting people know and helping us.
And how much did your baby Morgan sell for, or has it sold yet?
The baby Morgan I had to wash the baby Morgan, has a couple spots with it. I think I only sold it for like $35 because of the defects. The baby Gordon sold for like 80 because that was in better shape and it was a more desirable color.
Was that
Yes.
satin trimmed?
I don't know if it had any satin trim. It was like a greenish blue. It was like a more unique color, but that one
Okay.
sold for more. But if they have defects, they're a little, obviously the value goes down a little bit. But I bought several more vintage blankets just this past weekend. I haven't researched them, but one of them sounded like you had talked about before. Baby Chatham, maybe? If that was,
I
is that the
had
right one?
a Chatham. It was a regular size blanket, I think,
Okay.
for a full size bed.
Okay.
And it was definitely vintage. It had the vintage labels on, like you could tell from the label it was vintage. And the person who bought that, okay, it was pink. It was like a dusty rose. It wasn't 100% wool or anything, and it was satin trim, and it was in very good condition. And I think I paid $8 for it and sold it for around 70. But the lady that bought it, she was like, "Thank you so much for putting this up for sale. Somebody had this exact blanket, and it, that blanket meant a lot to her."
Yeah.
And she was happy to pay $70 for it. So,
okay. There's one strange thing that you're asking about sales. I sold it probably this summer. It was a clam like desheller type thing, or oyster desheller, and it was just like it looked kind of cheapy. And I'm like, well, let me look on the bottom at the thrift store. It was like $3. I'm like, I looked it up. It was like $70 and none listed. So and this lady who got it was extremely. She had been looking for one of these for so long, and I kind of underpriced it, I'm guessing, but still, she was extremely happy. There's some things that just are out of they don't make them anymore.
Yeah,
or
so
it's very hard to find.
Yeah, and you're going to see that. So was it like it was a gadget that cracks open oysters? Was it like a standing thing?
It was like a standing thing with feet, and it had like a rocking, like almost like a boat shaped thing, and then it would just rock back and forth, I guess. And like,
okay,
I've never done any shelling, so I don't really know, but
okay, yeah,
she knew what she was doing.
You would use in a restaurant maybe, or just if you're getting fresh oysters all the time.
Yes.
Who knew?
Yes, but I said it looked pretty cheapy. It was all plasticky. It didn't look super special, but I do check the little small appliances at the thrift store because you don't know what's going to be there. So
okay, great. Well, we're going to wrap it up here. Any final words for people getting into this? Because you haven't been doing it full force for very long, and you're very successful.
I would say just comp everything. I comp like stuff I'm going to keep. I comp because I want to know the value. So I like even watching people who are bringing on low dollar things, like even on YouTube videos, because I kind of get a gauge for what's out there and what you can sell it for. Because if you can find something cheap and you can sell it for 15 or 20 bucks, especially when you're starting out, that's great. And those things will add up. So comp everything, be consistent, and sell similar.
So you're talking about make your money when you buy things, buy them cheap.
Yes.
And I know I've said this along the way, but I'm going to say it again. Moving to Greenville from Atlanta, I'm finding things 85% cheaper.
Oh.
Like I never found things for 25 cents, 50 cents in our thrift stores. And I mean, I was doing eBay from 2003 till now in Atlanta the whole time.
Oh, wow.
And, tried all the different thrift stores, and it's just here it's very different. And so, yeah, my whole business model is changing because you can get something for 50 cents and sell it for $20. That's incredible. Like when I was used to getting those kind of things for $5, I'm not going to sell them for 20 because the profit's not there. So,
yes, your margins open up when you can buy things for cheaper. Your margins open up, and also you learn more. I feel like being able to buy things for cheap, you learn more. I think so.
Because even like I don't even look things up in the store if it's 50 cents. I'm like, if it doesn't work out, then I'll just redonate it or whatever. And it's like a learning opportunity. I can spend more time researching it when I get home. But, when you're paying at least $3 to $5 for everything, then yeah, you do look them up because you don't want to.
Yes.
And we couldn't return things. They're like, oh, you can always return it. No, not
Yes.
at the stores I went to in Georgia. You couldn't.
Yes. I feel like also going back to like vintage blankets, you kind of got me interested in the vintage blankets. And so when I was comping some of these things that I'd bought for pretty cheap, I would see other blankets that were doing good. So like the Winnie the Pooh blanket of a certain kind, I'm like, oh, if I ever see that one, I want to pick that one up. So it's good just even when you're comping, just look and see what the highest of that style or of that, you could just search in plush dog. I've done that before. And some of these plush dogs are like, I bought one. It's not super, super valuable, but there are other ones that are like hundreds of dollars. So always looking to the top of, any kind of category.
Yeah, like find the
there's
holy
so much
grail of that thing so that you'll
Yes.
at least have seen it.
Yes.
If you have a good enough memory to remember it. So, okay, well, I'm gonna let you go and get back to your busy day, but thanks for coming on, and we'll watch for more of your sales on the Facebook group.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. This has been fun. Thank you.
Good to meet you, Carol.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again, Carol, for coming on the podcast and sharing your eBay journey. On to today's trivia question. Let's talk about the fashion icon Gloria Vanderbilt. Why was her logo a swan? Here are 5 seconds to think about it. Okay, so there was no sound effect for a swan, so I had to use a duck. Okay, in 1954, Vanderbilt took to the stage. Her first production, a romantic drama called The Swan, inspired the signature logo she later used as a fashion designer. Yes, I have been watching biographies on the History Channel again. Gloria was the granddaughter of Cornelius Vanderbilt, the railroad commodore. She was born in 1924. During the 1930s, she was the subject of a high-profile child custody trial in which her mother, Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt, and her paternal aunt, Gertrude Vanderbilt Whitney, each sought custody of her and control over her very gigantic trust fund. It was called the trial of the century by the press. The court proceedings were the subject of wide and sensational press coverage due to the wealth and prominence of the involved parties and the scandalous evidence presented to support Whitney's claim that Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt was an unfit parent. And there is a movie about that. I think it was a made-for-TV movie back in the 80s. I think it was called Little Girl Lost or something like that. I remember watching it way back then. Anyway, in the 70s, Vanderbilt launched a line of fashions, perfumes, and household goods bearing her name. She was particularly noted as an early developer of designer blue jeans. And you may not know that broadcast journalist and political commentator Anderson Cooper is her son from her fourth marriage to author Wyatt Cooper. So just a little background on Gloria Vanderbilt. Okay, next week my guest is Mary Disney, who I have known for over a decade in the eBay world, and we finally met face-to-face on Zoom. That's as close to face-to-face as I get these days. Anyway, Mary is retired from corporate America and recently transitioned into retired life, spending a good chunk of her day working on one of her passions, eBay. Thank you again for tuning in, and I will talk to you next week. Bye for now.